faith is very sensitive. Religion in general is very sensitive. First time I questioned my belief system, and it felt very evil. It felt like I was very, how dare you question, the system. So I was just like, oh my gosh. So today I want to talk about my faith and basically Christianity, because that is my faith. And I feel like it's important also, as I build this community and I talk about the podcast, what's authentic to me, because this is what I base off my value system from. So welcome to episode, is it 6 or 7? Another podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Hope you've been enjoying the episodes. I hope you've been subscribing, sharing with your friends, and making sure that everyone knows. A big shout out to my production and studio partners, Howway Studios, Terry Limo, and Gang, and everyone who's here. Just love the love and the vibes here. So please, actually, if you want to record anything, if you have a podcast, it's a creative studio, please reach out to them. Howway Studios on Instagram, all other social media platforms, you'll find them there. So yeah, like I mentioned, today I wanted to talk about faith and basically just my journey in terms of how I view it, or I've grown up with it. So I grew up in a very Christian household. I went to church with my parents when I was young. I went to Sunday school, so I know the hymns, I know the Sunday school songs, and I just remember feeling fulfilled. I loved Sunday. Sunday was fun. Sunday was a day you go to church, you go to Sunday school, you learn about God, you with your friends. There were also church activities, so I loved church, especially in my formative years. And then after that, you go for Sunday lunch, and we used to either go out for lunch, especially with my parents, and then do shopping. So thinking back, now that I think about it, I don't think we necessarily had to do weekly shopping. I think it was just part of building a tradition. So for me, Sunday is very much a family day from as long as I could remember. Sunday was very much, a connection with God. Sunday was very much, just building that relationship. And also Sunday was family day. So a lot of, like I mentioned, a lot of lunches, and just family time. And then I started growing up, still loved church growing up. And then I think I got to my teenagers and I started questioning or being exposed to other faiths, not necessarily Hinduism, or just different ways of thinking, and just this spiritual world. And I had questions, and that's when you start getting crisis after crisis in terms of like who you are, your identity. And that's when I was just like I mentioned before in the previous episode, if you watch that, I talked about my journey with endometriosis and how that was tough. And I started, getting the pains and the symptoms of endo when I was around 14, which was in high school. And just this is when you're aware in terms of what life is, that life can be unfair. You start knowing that fact. Growing up, you didn't necessarily know about the evils of the world or in the injustices that would happen, in the world. And then now I feel like when you become a teenager is when now you become conscious of that. And so it's like, have these principles or this faith that I've subscribed to all my life. Does it really matter? Does it really count when it needs to? If I would say it that way. And I just remember having like a bit of a crisis. I was like, I don't know. And then I was in a public Kenyan high school. And you have been in one, we used to have these things called Weekend Challenge. And I remember questioning whether I was like Christian enough, because there were people who were like speaking in tongues. I wasn't there yet. There were people who were like falling on the ground. Apparently they were possessed. So it was outside of what I had grown up with. And obviously there was just a lot of confusion and chatter. So which brings me to my point, which is faith is very sensitive. Religion in general is very sensitive. And this is just a bit of a segue. And also just to say that in high school, I feel like the adults in the room have the responsibility to make sure that they preserve the sanctity of either the faith, or kind of have parameters where people are not going outside and, either scaring other people or having fanaticism or just cynicism also around religion. And it became crazy. And there were people who, were saying like, they were possessed, and, they were being exorcised. And there was a lot. And so I was just like, I don't feel like I'm Christian enough. Am I a child of God anymore, because now I can't do the things that other people are able to do, and now I've also discovered the unfairness of the world. I have discovered that, like, life is not easy, and this is when now challenges are happening. This is the first time I'm away from home officially. I mean, it's just a lot of changes. So it did feel simple, as simple as it was when I was going to Sunday school, and we'd have like a family Sunday after that. And they're just, that's the season I remember the first time I questioned my belief system, and it felt very evil. It felt like I was very, how dare you question, the system. So I was just like, oh my gosh. And obviously, it's like, how dare you question God? How dare you question Christianity? How dare you question all these things about also yourself? And it just felt like, yeah, have I been experiencing God on a personal level, and, my faith on a personal level? Or was I just going with the motions of what was expected in life? Go to church, read your Bible. If you're in Bible study, do that. Sometimes you don't. And then now you get into a place of self-awareness, which is, I feel like, the first official stage of self-awareness is when you're a teenager and this question started coming up. Then, like I mentioned before, when I was 21 is when I was officially diagnosed with endometriosis. And at that point, I was just like, is God really here? Is God near? Is God with me? Is God in the room? Hello, like, I've been your daughter. I feel like I've been good. I feel like, I'm not a murderer. I don't have necessarily this big sins. So how can you let this happen to me? And my faith, I think, was challenged for the first time. So I'm going through an identity crisis. I'm feeling ill, and then my faith is challenged. And at that time, I didn't recognize it as that. I just felt like, yeah, I don't know. But I kept on showing up, and now the other Christian language came up, or faith language came up, like performative faith and performative Christianity, and you're not a real Christian because you don't do this and that. And it just felt like rule seeking. And then it was also the time I was, discovering myself. I liked music. I liked dancehall. Like I told you, I love rhythms. I remember a friend of mine in high school. We used to love them, and we used to love dancing to that. And, we were demonized for it and stuff like that. And it just felt like a long rule book that, I wasn't necessarily getting right. So, it's an identity crisis. It's a rule book that I'm not necessarily getting up to par with. And I don't know what to do next. So I just felt like, and the funny thing is, in those moments of doubt and confusion is where I think I also now personally found God for myself, or rather found my faith again. And the reason I say that is, especially when I was sick, I was first diagnosed with endometriosis. That was the first time I feel like I came to God, like, on a personal level, and talked to him as a friend. That was the first time I experienced, his comfort and what that means to have peace in the middle of a storm. Because I remember, like I said, I was very depressed the first time, the news broke, and I was just like, oh man, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to move on. I don't know how to go about this. What happens? And I just remember just also still in the midst of that madness, still having peace and, praying and all of that. So I think that was the first time I also just started being on a journey, not because I was raised in the church, and not because I was taken to church or Sunday school by my parents, but experiencing God for myself. Another thing is that there's also a lot of like church hurt, or just religious hurt. Like I said, just, all these things of like, you're not good enough, you're not good enough Christian because you're not, speaking in tongues, or you're not doing this and that, or you listen to this type of music, so you're not, Christian enough. So there's also just a lot of like church hurt and pain around that. And I know there's so many people who have left the church because of that. And I know some of my friends also don't necessarily go to church. They say, I'm Christian or I believe in God, but I just don't believe in the institution of church when it matters. And it's valid as well. Like, that's not something necessarily you can take away from someone in terms of like, that was their experience, that was what they went through, and things like that. But what I've come to learn now and today, and how I live my life, is that having your own faith, and I'm not even trying to impose it to you, because I'm saying this is how I grew up, and it's experiencing God for yourself. It's experiencing his goodness for yourself. It's getting to know him. It's, seeking him through prayer. It's, how do you feel about prayer? How do you feel after prayer? Speaking to him as a friend. And I'm not to say this like I have found it all, but I feel like now the version of God that I believe in, and I think I even wrote it down, is kind, and it's not just transactional. It's a real relationship that he wants to know you. He wants to get to know who you are. He cares about you and your dreams. And I'm not saying that I have it figured out. It's just one of those things that I feel like, when you have a relationship with God, is things, concepts like shame, go away, because you know that it's not even the fact that he loves you, not because of anything you've done, but just by his grace. So concepts like shame fade away. And there's just so much that we can say and unpack about this topic. And that's what I started by saying. I don't know if I did, but I was just thinking in my head, like, I don't know what the end goal is, but I just felt like sharing that your faith journey is so personal to you that no one can necessarily subscribe it to you, that you have to know God for yourself, for you to have a relationship with him. So it's not necessarily a sermon in terms of like, what you need to do, what you don't need to do, but it's just like a poignant reminder of my personal journey. Like, I served in church for as long as I remember, the youth group things. I did all those things, and it was so fun. Eh, but I remember like also just saying it's okay, like questioning, like, why am I even doing this in the first place? It's okay to question that. But then that's when you go and seek answers for yourself. So I don't know where you are on your journey. I don't know what kind of also the pain that the church has brought to you. But I do know for myself that, having a relationship with God has really changed things for me. Like, I'm calm, I have peace, even when there are challenges and things like that. But I feel like I'm in a good place. So I just wanted to share that. This is not going to be necessarily a long episode. I don't even know what the takeout is for this one specifically, but just to let you know it's okay, and it's something that we need to be more open minded about and discussing. And right now, especially even in our country, like, the role of the church in what we're going through as a country is really being questioned. How the church shows up for people, especially those who are less fortunate, things like that. So let's have these conversations and make sure that they are productive, and we're not attacking people. But I do know right now that it's just a point where I feel like having that relationship with God is important, but like, not to be imposed on anyone. But I feel like it's really, really changed me. It has brought joy, and it has brought peace to me. So yeah, like I said, I don't know what the end result is for this one, but I just wanted to share that. And I don't have all the answers, but I'm not walking away. I don't have all the answers. I'm not walking away from God. It's a step at a time. And all I know is who I am, where I am. It's all to his glory. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you for this episode. Please make sure that you follow on all social media platforms. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, also on social media, OMG Another Podcast. Thank you so much and see you on the next one.